Hello everybody, Tyrone the God 3 here, and welcome back to a topic I've been actually looking forward to discussing for a while, just never had the means to do it. And the topic is this. Well, if all of you all have noticed, we have been seeing a lot of Dragon Ball Super episodes that have mentioned several times that disrupting time in any way, shape, or form, or going back in time, is known as a universal offense. It's punishable by law. Jocko said it in both Resurrection F and in the Resurrection F saga of Dragon Ball Super. And Whis himself said it during the Future Trunks / Black Goku arc. And because of this, Trunks technically has performed an illegal act way back in Dragon Ball Z when he went back in time to give Goku the heart virus medicine. While it does sound bad, Goku was supposed to die via the heart virus, and everything that took place in the history of Trunks was supposed to basically go in the history of Trunks' order, with the exception of Trunks going back in time. The invention of the time machine has triggered several different events because Trunks was able to go back in time and inadvertently cause a butterfly effect in that timeline. Several things happened, like, for example, Dr. Gero and Android 19 show up rather than Android 17 and 18 right off the get-go. 17 and 18 are way more stronger than they are in the main DBZ timeline, our timeline. However, they are a lot more rebellious of Dr. Gero's initial instructions, which is to destroy human life, because 17 and 18 actually don't kill any humans whatsoever during the main timeline. However, they are reportedly stronger, probably due to a malfunction error or being incomplete and ill-prepared. So, with all of these things being said, a lot of people start to argue, well, Whis did a temporal do-over, which brought everybody back 3 minutes into the past. Why isn't this a federal offense? Well, there's no proof that it is or isn't a federal offense. However, I will like to point out that there's a big difference between a temporal do-over and actually going back in time. If you haven't already, I suggest you go see Quaman's video on the works of alternate timelines and how they take place. And I also suggest that you go see Geekdom's video on the differences between universes and alternate timelines, because they are not the exact same thing. These are two very important lessons to learn when it comes to time travel in the Dragon Ball Z universe, because Dragon Ball Z essentially follows multiverse theory, whereas there's two different universes, one where I order a turkey sandwich and another where I order a ham sandwich. Essentially, these two universes don't connect with each other in any way, shape, or form unless I were to go back in time and then alter my decision by telling myself that the ham sandwich sucks and to get the turkey sandwich. Thus, I end up getting a turkey sandwich in that timeline where I got a ham sandwich in the other timeline, inadvertently creating a whole new universe. So, with that said, Trunks' criminal activity of going back in time in order to stop Mecha Frieza and give Goku the heart virus created an entirely new universe, which was already made to us, known as the main DBZ timeline. The timeline in which we, the audience, actually follow. The history of Trunks' timeline is an alternate future that takes place where shit basically hits the fan. Now, when Trunks goes back in time and he creates his own universe, what's the difference between this and Whis using a temporal do-over in order to stop Frieza from destroying the Earth a second time? Well, here's the thing. Whis actually goes back in time 3 minutes. That's what his limit is. He ends up telling everybody that he's tanking everything in that universe and reversing it for 3 minutes. The difference between this and Trunks going back in time is because the only person that goes back in time in Trunks' situation is Trunks. Trunks is taking events that have already happened and altering them in a way to which he technically shouldn't be involved. This timeline doesn't need Trunks in it because there's already a Trunks that's being born via Bulma's body. So, with that being said, everybody in that timeline isn't affected when Whis ends up using a temporal do-over, because he's essentially reversing all of the events that happen in one universe for 3 minutes. If you want a weird, obscure example of what I'm talking about, think about a cassette tape. Basically, what Whis is doing is rewinding the very same cassette tape back 3 minutes to the beginning of a song. What Trunks is doing is taking that cassette tape that's probably broken, taking it out of the cassette player, putting a new cassette tape in, and playing it from the very beginning, and then making some alterations to make sure that it doesn't sound or break like the last cassette tape did. That's a nice example, I think, if anyone knows what the hell a cassette tape is. If you want a different example, it's like me playing a YouTube video and then going back to the very beginning of that YouTube video. And then what Trunks is doing is essentially opening a new tab and opening a new YouTube video that has the exact same content, but he alters and edits a bit with annotations and various little edit bugs in order to make it slightly different. Two videos, just the same, but with two different outcomes. There you go. So, this also leads to hit. Hit shows the ability to have the ability to use the time leap or time skip, as you will. Essentially, does this break any rules? Well, no. Bulma argues in both cases that using the temporal do-over and time skipping is a form of federal offense, and Jocko should arrest them. However, Jocko doesn't have the power to arrest Whis, clearly because he's weaker, and he just didn't want to deal with an assassin known as Hit. So he couldn't obviously take these two routes of action. However, it's also to admit that Hit technically doesn't offend anybody with this crime. In fact, it's not a crime at all. Hit using his time leap is the equivalent to me actually fast forwarding a couple of frames in that very same cassette example I made. Or if you're watching a YouTube video, for example, let's say instead of watching the video all the way through from 2:18, I just skip ahead to 4:18. I've skipped 2 minutes ahead, but it's still the exact same video. So, with that being said, those are the small little differences that'll let you know the difference between time skipping, temporal do-over, and time travel. What Trunks is doing is that he himself is inadvertently affecting the timeline. Now, you can also argue, well, Hit is the only one that's traveling forward within that time. Well, that's not true. Hit, I think, has a range in which he skips time, because the character himself can also skip as well. Goku immediately states that in order to stop Hit's time skip, or at least predict it in a way, he tries to predict the moves that he'll make 3 seconds ahead of time, which means time technically still is moving. Hit's just skipping it in a way to where his body appears faster. It's the equivalent of playing Halo back in the good old Xbox days, and your internet connection was kind of weird. So rather than you just walking, you would somehow teleport to a different area. I know it's kind of weird, but there's a really old machinima video of a Halo player who actually was lagging so hard that his frame skips allowed him to have an advantage in the fight. If you want to take it to that absurd degree, go ahead, but that's essentially what we're dealing with here. So there's a little fun DBZ fact for you all there. Just know the difference between temporal do-overs, time skips, and frame skips. So see you all then. Tyrone the God 3 out.